The White Sox have reportedly pulled off the impossible and will be hiring Will Venable as their next manager. Let's discuss the good news with my guest next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network. And also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. Well, I've never been more proud to be loud wrong, as reports dropped overnight that the White Sox are about to hire Texas Rangers associate coach Will Venable to be the next manager. I talked with 670 The Score's afternoon show executive producer and one of the biggest critics of the White Sox, Shane Riordan, about what the hiring means, along with all the other positive changes happening in the front office. He and I also discussed his work on covering the Sox possible relocation news and his involvement in a feud with the team's TV play-by-play announcer. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So let's get into my conversation with Shane right now. All right, Shane, so what was your reaction to the team hiring Will Venable?
Well, I'm not surprised that it happened at 10:24 p.m. on a Tuesday night on Game 4 of the World Series. Like, that's typical White Sox. I thought that they would wait a little bit longer and at least wait for the off day because – like, this isn't a hire that you want to bury. Like, this is a good hire. Will Venable was the next guy up after Skip Schumacher became no longer available. Like, the White Sox did a good thing here. They hired someone who's well-regarded within the game. They hired someone who doesn't have any ties to the organization outside of Rick Renteria, and we can talk about that if you want. But the White Sox did something that is – I mean, it sounds wild to say, but it's unprecedented for them. They don't do this. They don't hire someone who doesn't have ties to Jerry Reinsdorf, who Jerry doesn't say, hey, you got these three guys, this pool to pick from, pick one of them. They hired the best person for the job. So I am surprised solely because they did the right thing and we're so not used to the White Sox doing the right thing.
Yeah, did you actually think that they were capable of even thinking of this? Because, like, I didn't even think that they would be like, hey, let's go try to pry the heir apparent in Texas, especially when Texas is a much better situation than Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I knew Chris Getz was capable because, like, we talk a lot of trash about Chris Getz, and deservedly so. Like, he built Project Birmingham. He oversaw the minor leagues, a minor league system that isn't doing that well before the trades of the last 2 years. Like, Chris Getz' claim to fame within the White Sox organization is Project Birmingham and building up the minor leagues when he didn't really build them up. They tried to say that, and Jerry tried to say that he picked someone as a GM who knows the organization so they don't have to set themselves a year back. But what Chris Getz knows of the organization is ineptitude, and an ineptitude that he was part of building. But with the hire of that Navy SEAL, I can never remember his name, or Marine, whoever he is, to like overhaul the organization and like the processes and the operations. And now the hiring of Will Venable, I'm not surprised, and I'm glad that they're finally making decisions that are kind of in line to what the rest of Major League Baseball would do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it actually sounds like somebody that actually got into Jerry's ear, you know, because it was speculated. I know that the station has said, like, you know, Getz kind of got into Jerry's ear saying, hey, I can do a better job. It sounds like this might actually be, working out, actually.
Well, I mean, I think it's way too early to say. We have to see what happens with Colson Montgomery. We have to see what happens with what return he gets for Garrett Crochet, because I don't think that Garrett Crochet will pitch an inning for the White Sox this year. I think he'll be dealt before the trade deadline. We have to see what happens with Luis Robert. I think he's worthy of an extension, but I wouldn't be disappointed if Getz decided to deal him for the right guys. But I'm not ready to say yet no that the White Sox got it right with Chris Getz, but I'm willing to give him a little bit longer of a leash than maybe we gave Rick Hahn toward the end, especially Rick Hahn after the Fernando Tatis Jr. trade. Like, I'm willing to give Chris Getz a chance kind of like people aren't willing to give Matt Eberflus a chance after like that doesn't make much sense. I won't use that comp, but I'm willing to give Chris Getz a chance because I think this was the right hire and a hire that the White Sox don't normally make.
No, I can see the comp because, again, if you squint sometimes at Chris Getz, you might see, hey, there's some potential there. And there used to be with Eberflus, there might be some potential there until obviously giving up the Hail Mary play there and not calling timeout and that type of stuff. No, I totally get where you were going there. Also, with the latest front office synergy news, does this mean Chris Getz might know what he's doing?
I don't know if he knows what he's doing outside of making this correct hire and outside of getting the correct return for like Kendall Graveman or getting the right return for Eric Fetty. And like, we haven't seen it play out yet, but in situations like this, I think you have to look at what people you respect in Major League Baseball think about returns. And people have been impressed by his returns as of late. But I just can't look past the way that he built the minor league system when he was in charge of it in Birmingham. I can't look past that just yet. I need to see a few more drafts from Chris Getz. I need to see the return he gets, like I said, from Crochet, from Luis Robert, if they decide to deal him. I don't know if he is the guy, and it's like a bad aftertaste because we know who Jerry's guys and how Jerry's guys normally turn out. So I'm not ready to say that yet, but I've been more encouraged by Chris Getz than I've been by other people that have been considered Jerry's guys.
Venable, and then obviously these front office changes that have been happening. Is that reason enough to get excited for the Chicago White Sox?
I don't think you should ask White Sox fans to do anything in terms of excitement right now. Finishing 41 and 121, obviously the worst record in modern day baseball history. It's like when you're in a relationship, right? And maybe you get into arguments often and you're really good at apologizing. Like you're great at saying, hey, this is where I went wrong. I need to do this better next time. I identify that this is the problem in the relationship. The White Sox don't even do that right. Like they can't even do the bare minimum of talking themselves down from disappointment and showing the fans like, hey, I can identify that this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. They don't even do that. Jerry releases these garbage statements once every 6 months, which is also unprecedented because when he talked in like 2022 or whatever that was to the assembled media, he hadn't talked officially since like the 80s. That was the first time since the 80s. So I wouldn't say that the White Sox fans should be excited about anything because the White Sox haven't shown you a reason to be excited. Like, Will Venable is the right hire. It's a hire of someone that believes in modern day baseball, believes in modern analytics, believes that there's a difference between the eye and what the computer tells you. So that's encouraging. But I'm not going to get excited until they show me that what Will Venable and the reconstruction of the front office has done to actually improve the product on the field. Like, I was a season ticket holder. I very publicly on the show got rid of my season tickets. I have no interest in going. I went one time last year. That's it. I'm a diehard White Sox fan. I have been since the day I was born. I was there at like 3 months old. My dad had season tickets through work. Like, we went all the time. That's all I've known. But they give me no reason to be excited. And until they win on the field, White Sox fans should feel the same.
First of all, I got to credit then your dad for keeping his season tickets because I think I'm 10 years older than you, and that would have been like 95 that you're talking about, like even that. Or
no, it would have been so 3 months old. I would have been. It would have been the 92 season.
Okay, so 92. Okay,
yeah.
All right, but even keeping, like how you were saying, keeping the tickets too throughout that. My
well,
dad.
No, those were his work tickets, and then we got some in like 2004, so we could be ready for the playoffs, and like we went to all the playoff games in 2005. But then I got my own season tickets in like whatever the year that Larry hit the home run and got him a $40 billion contract. The season before I got season tickets then, but I gave them up 2 years ago. So I had them for like 3 years. But all that to be said, no. White Sox fans should not be excited until you see wins on the field.
Yeah, but no, I was even going to say like 3 because my dad had. I mean, I know the work tickets. My dad had season tickets through a teachers group, and he dropped out after 95 because after the strike they still raised ticket prices.
Oh, of course it did. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and now that they raised ticket prices from $12 to $15, and my dad was like, "I can't pay that."
Well, that's 3 times 81.
Yeah.
So whatever that is, 254, whatever that is. I think 54. That's a lot of money in 1995.
Yeah, and don't worry, we're going to get to the Jerry Reinsdorf and the audience of one and how it's hard to be a fan of him in just a little bit. But what else do you think this organization needs to do? Then you kind of talked about it, but what do they need to do more to return our faith in this franchise?
Well, they need to modernize, and they need to acknowledge their wrongdoing, because Jerry doesn't even do that. And Chris Getz, I don't know him that well, but he doesn't even acknowledge the wrongdoing. Like, his acknowledgement of wrongdoing is admitting to the fans that he doesn't like the team, like in his introductory press conference or audio surrounding the introductory press conference. Like, his acknowledgement is, yeah, the team's trash, but brother, what are you doing? Like, you need to spend money, and that's a Jerry thing, but Jerry will bring in GMs that won't pressure him to spend money. That's the issue with the White Sox, that no matter who is in there, they're always a Jerry guy, and Jerry puts him in there because he knows they're not going to pressure him to do what the rest of Major League Baseball is doing. The White Sox, this current iteration of the Jerry Reinsdorf-owned White Sox, has never spent money. There is no excuse ever for a Market 3 baseball team to not have a contract that is 9 figures. The fact that, depending on how you look at it between the AAV and breakdowns, the fact that Andrew Benintendi and Yasmani Grandal are the 2 highest paid players in the history of the White Sox is embarrassing. The fact that Jerry Reinsdorf, in the first time speaking since the 80s, told the assembled media, ha, 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 we're not going to be in on Shohei Ohtani. Number one, that's illegal, and he should have been punished for it, like within the terms of Major League Baseball. But number two, you're just spitting in the faces of your fans. That's all you're doing. You're just telling your fans, I'm not interested in being competitive with what the rest of Major League Baseball is doing. So until they spend money, until they show us how they're changing the minor league system and changing their analytical thought process and bringing in the right equipment and the right Rapsodo machines and the right computers to show players, this is what you're doing right, this is what you're doing wrong, here's how you can fix it, there's no sense in having faith in the organization.
And I like how you brought up, though, just the lack of spending money. The other thing that they don't do well is they don't, even with the limited financial resources, they don't spend it correctly. You saw how the title window, as the window slammed shut, which I loved how you guys did that on the previous afternoon show. They spent it on, for example, the bullpen. Small market teams with limited financial resources still find a way to spend their money wisely to get them over the top or to at least keep them competitive. And the Sox just don't even do that correctly.
No, and small market teams take starters or guys in single A and double A with high ceilings and low floors, and they find a way to use their 2 best pitches, whether it be like a fastball and some kind of cutter, slider, curveball, turn them into 2-pitch pitchers. Don't worry about like, hey, our plan originally was for you to be a starter. We're going to continue to stretch you out at single A, double A, triple A, and continue through those progressions to get to the major leagues. No, small market teams who don't have money to spend take those guys and understand that once we bring them up, we have 6 years of control, and they absolutely maximize that fastball and that breaking ball, or that fastball and that changeup, to turn them into lights out relievers. The White Sox don't do that. They don't. Mm-hmm. They don't maximize resources at the lower level. But before Chris Getz, they didn't draft well either. Like, the White Sox drafted Carson Fulmer in the first round. I don't even think Carson Fulmer's in the league anymore. I might be wrong about that. I think he pitched in like September for somebody, but I don't think
he's with the Angels.
The Angels. Yes, he was starting for the Angels. But then again, if you want to look at it that way, the White Sox absolutely screwed up Michael Kopech. And then Michael Kopech went to the Dodgers, and all of a sudden he's lights out because he has the right equipment and right coaching staff to show him what he's doing right and what he's doing wrong. They can show Michael Kopech, hey, this is what you're doing with your curveball. You're tipping it. Here's how you fix it. The White Sox, there's no precedent for them doing that. So that's what fans need to see change before they give any dedication to the team, in my opinion.
All right, and after we just crapped on the organization because we know it's crap, are you stunned that Venable wants to leave? It was a much better situation in Texas for Chicago.
No, I'm not stunned that he was the bench coach in Texas, right?
Yeah.
I'm not stunned that any bench coach takes a promotion to be the head coach, be the manager of a baseball team. No, it doesn't matter who it is. I see Will Venable coming in, who knows Chris Getz, and Chris Getz convinces him, hey, it's you and I here, brother. Like, we're head of baseball operations. You're going to be involved in these conversations. We want to grow with you. We see you as the person who can grow the organization. Will Venable has a lot of friends in Major League Baseball. He has a lot of people who respect him and think he's worth his salt. Theo Epstein hired him as a special assistant to the GM and the manager, and then put him at first base coach, moved him over to third when they brought in Mike Napoli. If Theo Epstein endorses you, and Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer say, this guy knows what he's doing, then I trust that. So I trust Will Venable. I'm surprised that this is the team he wants to start his career with, but I don't think Will Venable is stupid. So that makes me think that the messaging within the White Sox front office has changed, and someone who's respected in baseball like Will Venable believes it. So if he believes it, I'll believe it, but I'm still waiting to see the results. I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be excited until there is a result. That being said, I'm glad they made what seems to be the right decision.
All right, let's get Shane's take on the speculation that just passed through on the Sox possibly relocating to Nashville and Bridgeport getting a bad rap for no good reason next on Locked On White Sox. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Indiana. My buddy on the text chain who lives behind the cheddar curtain loves using PrizePicks to get his selections in. I love it because it's simple and fun to play. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. All right, Shane Help 670 output some good coverage on the Sox possible relocation to Nashville that was being speculated about a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to get his thoughts along with Bridgeport, the neighborhood Guaranteed Rate Field is at, getting a bad rap for no good reason. Are the Sox, though, ever likely to ever move to Nashville? Because certain people on the station were like, well, it's inevitable, and then on other ends, like you guys have been covering, it might not be.
Yeah, I have a very hard time believing that Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred would ever let the third market in the game lose its second team. Like, the White Sox still make money for the league. The White Sox merch is still incredible. People still buy White Sox hats because of its significance in pop culture and hip hop culture, rap culture. Like, the logo still means something. The association with Chicago still means something. No, I don't think they'll move. I don't think baseball would allow it. I don't think Jerry wants to. Like the Bears, it's all a leverage play. Jerry just wants a new shiny toy to carry his legacy after he dies. Like, he needs a win Jerry needs a win because he hasn't had one since 2005. But if he builds a brand new shiny stadium that people love and that the game wants to host events at and a World Series at, then Jerry's legacy is solidified as someone who furthered his organization geographically and within real estate, but didn't put it on the field. So people will remember that he couldn't build a team, but then they'll also see, but look at this beautiful stadium he built. That being said, there's nothing wrong with Guaranteed Rate Field at 35th and Shields. There's nothing wrong with it. The issue with it is that it wasn't pointed the right direction in the first place. When that stadium was built, I remember seeing a Sun-Times article that my dad had saved or something like that, where they talked about the engineers that they brought in that manufactured the wind tunnels so that the ball would go out in certain places, and that's why they faced it southeast instead of northeast. It's bullshit. You made a mistake. You didn't realize that what people want is sight lines and not the perfect place to place your stadium. So my proposition is you don't leave. You don't try to leave. If you want to rebuild and you want a new stadium, which you don't need because it's a beautiful place and the experience there is great, tailgating's great, food is great, the people who work there are great. I love Guaranteed Rate Field. Build on the old Comiskey site in that parking lot. You're going to lose out on parking for a couple of years, fine, whatever, but then turn it. Keep it in Bridgeport because Bridgeport is a beautiful neighborhood that deserves a baseball team. Amazon just moved in 3-4 blocks down the road in Bridgeport. Don't let another company come in here and put a goddamn warehouse. And yes, it gives Chicagoans jobs, but it's not good for the neighborhood. Just do the right thing. Build on the old Comiskey lot. Face it northeast. You're good to go.
All right, but Shane, Bridgeport is dangerous. It's
No,
just
it's not.
totally. I know. I was going to get into that.
Yeah.
Why is Bridgeport so unfairly stereotyped? Because let's see, that Armour Square Park, I think that didn't exactly happen the way it happened. And even when I've gone down to the, down there, I've never felt afraid. There's good security. Even I've dropped off on the 93 ALCS. We had to be dropped off, like my dad and I, about 14 blocks away. If you're wearing your White Sox gear, when it was dangerous, we had our White Sox gear. Everybody in the neighborhood was celebrating the White Sox. They know that, but why is it so unfairly stereotyped?
Well, I think it's the out-of-town stupid and just like people from and I include people from the burbs being out-of-town stupid, like these scared white folks from Naperville and Schaumburg. Sorry, I said the F word. Sorry, my bad. Schaumburg, the Northwest burbs, whatever, that just associate Bridgeport with the South Side and Englewood and back of the yards and between 71st and 79th and east of Stony. Like, they just, where our bad stuff is, they just put Bridgeport in that. You are safe always until you yourself act stupid. I've never once felt endangered in Bridgeport, and I was going to games by myself in high school. I was 14, 15 years old. My parents know the city. They grew up in the city. They let me take the Metro to then walk to the Jackson Red Line and take that to 35th and Shields. Like, I've never once in my life felt endangered in Bridgeport. What I have felt in Bridgeport is welcome and cultured. And I'm a big food guy, finding great food at Maria's and Kimski and all these places in Bridgeport that welcome you. But again, this comes back to Jerry, because Jerry has the opportunity to buy out land and build like the Cubs did, like the Ricketts family did. And they bought out these bars in Wrigleyville up and down Clark. They bought out these rooftops because they had the money to make it look good. Jerry's got the money to make it look good. He can buy out these places and build up around his ballpark, but he has no interest because it's spending money, and he won't do that.
Yeah, and he has a partner at the 78. Basically, I've always noticed Jerry's willing to spend money if he has a co-signer. He wouldn't have a co-signer at Bridgeport. He would have a co-signer at the 78 because Related Midwest really seems to want to get this land developed.
Yeah.
And, they're trying to do whatever they can to help him. All right, Shane in the previous afternoon show had a feud with John Triffin that I wanted to get his take on in terms of how it ties into loving a team that someone else owns. We'll get to that after the break. My dad took me to game 1 of the 1993 ALCS, and while the result was not great, along with Michael Jordan's retirement news breaking out, I'll always have that memory as I got to take in a playoff game live and in person. And if you want to take in memorable moments, I suggest you use the Game Time app to get your tickets. Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They got flash deals and zone deals. With flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. With zone deals, you can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets and more with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Shout out to all my everydayers. Again, I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fan friends to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox or wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Well, John Triffin is the TV play-by-play voice because, as the Score has done a good job of commentating on, it's a broadcast for one. Owner Jerry Reinsdorf. So I want to get Shane's take on that feud John has had with the radio station and why it's hard to watch a TV broadcast that's basically geared towards an audience of one when it should be an audience for Sox fans. Did you ever have on your bingo card for this season that you'd be part of a feud with a TV play-by-play announcer?
No, but I also didn't have on my bingo card that the White Sox would choose a play-by-play announcer that has no idea anything about baseball or how the team's fans feel. And I also didn't have on my bingo card that the White Sox Twitter crew would ingratiate him so much and make him feel so welcome when he doesn't know shit about your team. I didn't have that either. I didn't have anything having to do with John Triffin on my bingo card this year. And I hope that bingo card disappears and they get him out of his 3-year deal with the White Sox and he doesn't call another game for the White Sox because he's got no idea what this organization is and he doesn't even know baseball.
Well, I mean, the one thing that he has done is he at least goes to the tailgates. I think that's how he ingratiates.
Oh, good.
Himself.
Good. I'm glad he does. Somebody has to.
Yeah, I've actually, I know you guys have your feeling. I'm been neutral on him. I think the only thing that he does well is he uses Steve Stone well. I mean, if you have Steve Stone next to you, use Steve Stone, but you're right. But the reason why I get irritated with him is how I'm neutral, but on the negative, he's broadcasting to an audience of one, Jerry Reinsdorf. And that's the reason why I wanted to bring this up is it's frustrating to be a fan of this team because you have an owner, for example, the one way that you can consume this product is by watching the television broadcast. And you have this owner that says, instead of it being for everybody, I want it to be for me. How frustrating does that make it even more to be a White Sox fan when you have an owner that is basically saying the broadcast has to be for me and not for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. And that's not John Triffin's fault. Like, the fact that John Triffin took a good job for good money because the owner liked him and the owner knew that he'd be a yes man, that's not John's fault. I'm not going to fault some guy for taking good money just because the owner likes him. But it's the overarching issue of the organization. Jerry sits in his booth up there, smoking his cigar, with the game broadcast, with the sound going on over his speakers, listening to his broadcast team. As someone who has bosses, who talks for 4 hours a day on the radio, who knows his bosses are hearing him, I've always felt empowered by Mitch Rosen, Ryan Porth, to say whatever I feel about any of the teams in our city. Even the Cubs, even the Bulls, who we're the flagship home of. They empower us to say what we want as long as we're not inflammatory or lying or derogatory, whatever. John Triffin doesn't even have that. He can't even do that. Because if he does, then he's gone. So I understand why he does what he does, but it just comes back to Jerry. Jerry is impeding the progress of the organization, not only on the field, in the clubhouse, in the meeting rooms, in the analytics, and in the broadcast booth. And that won't change until Jerry's gone.
Yeah. And the ironic thing is his pre and post game show, Jerry actually allows for criticism. He has Frank Thomas and Ozzie Guillen there. You would think then why not, stop, we can see the product's a bad product. And if you're going to have pandering, then at least just say, hey, we appreciate you coming out. Not, we're not taking that, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think he's trying to prove himself. And I don't really know why. That's not what White Sox fans want, but it just speaks to him not really knowing who we are coming into the job. And also, like, from what I know, not really caring. He doesn't really care what White Sox fans want or know.
But he's going to a tailgate.
Yeah,
that type of stuff.
He's going to the tailgate. I mean, I'm happy for those guys who get him to come out. Like, I get that. That's fun. I'm happy for them. But, like, the guy's out of touch.
Yeah. And like I said to the bums too, I'm not attacking them. I know they love him and they do great stuff in the White Sox Twitter community and that type of stuff. So Shane, I will let you get back to your bread. I really appreciate your time.
Oh no, dude, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the playoff picture. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss who is likely to come back next season and who shouldn't. And also, I'm going to have more reaction to Will Venable being hired. I definitely want to get into how I was loud wrong. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion with Shane. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On Sox, or email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.